Welcome to the J-Spot, the place where we stimulate the most sensitive parts of your brain.
And today, we are aiming that stimulation at a very specific, very raw nerve ending.
Yeah.
We're talking about the intersection of radical rage and what can only be described as radical love.
It is a heavy one today, and it's one that feels almost pre-written by the cosmos. I want you to look at your calendar, for real. Today is Saturday, February 21, 2026.
Right.
Now, usually, dates are just markers. They're just squares on a grid. We pass through them, we forget them.
They're arbitrary.
Completely. But when you start digging into the history of American civil rights, into the story of Black radicalism, February 21st stops being just another date. It starts to feel, significant, like a cosmic collision.
It really does. It's one of those moments in history where the narrative threads just pull together so tightly, it's almost uncanny. It's not just rhyming, it's screaming in unison.
So let's lay out this timeline for everyone listening because it is staggering. We are looking at a synchronization of two massive events, 32 years apart, involving two of the most potent forces in 20th century American history.
Okay, let's break it down.
First, you rewind the clock, go back to February 21st, 1933, Tryon, North Carolina. A baby girl is born, Eunice Kathleen Wayman.
And the world, of course, would eventually come to know her as Nina Simone, the high priestess of soul.
The sonic guardian of the movement. That's a perfect way to put it.
It is.
But then you fast forward exactly 32 years to the day, February 21st, 1965.
And the location shifts. We're in Harlem now, the Audubon Ballroom.
And that is the day Malcolm X is assassinated.
So on the exact day that Nina Simone is preparing to celebrate her 32nd birthday.
Her birthday.
The man who, you could argue, shaped her political consciousness more than almost any other figure is gunned down in front of his family.
It's eerie. It's genuinely unsettling when you put it together like that. And looking at this, just the massive stack of research we've pulled for this deep dive.
It's a mountain.
It is. We've got biographies, musicological breakdowns, the full transcript of the ballad or the bullet speech, and some very, very intense essays on mental health and neurodivergence. And the mission here isn't just to say, wow, what a coincidence.
No, not at all. We're trying to investigate how these two lives didn't just touch on a calendar by chance, but how they intersected in their souls, in their ideology.
And the thesis that kept jumping out, the thing that connects every single source we looked at, is this idea of reframing the word rage.
Yes.
Because that is the word that's always attached to them, isn't it? Malcolm is the angry black man. Nina is the difficult diva.
It's a label, and it's a dismissive one.
It's incredibly dismissive. It's a way to shrink them down, to make their anger seem like a personal failing, a character flaw.
It's a way to pathologize them, to make it about them, and not about the conditions they were responding to. But if you actually analyze the source material, if you look at why they were screaming, that rage wasn't a loss of control. It was the exact opposite. It was a form of radical care. It was a protective mechanism. We're going to explore how a classically trained pianist and a revolutionary orator used that rage to try and build, a fortress around Black dignity.
A fortress like that. Let's start with that concept you mentioned earlier, the cosmic neighbors, because I was genuinely surprised to learn they were literal neighbors, not just spiritual ones.
They were, which is wild. They both lived in Mount Vernon, New York.
And this wasn't, some sprawling metropolis.
No, it was a fairly tight-knit suburb. And they ran in this incredibly dense, high-voltage social circle. You have to just take a second and try to imagine a living room, right?
Okay.
A living room that contains Nina Simone, Malcolm X, the playwright Lorraine Hansberry.
Who wrote A Raisin in the Sun. A genius.
A total genius. And James Baldwin is there, too.
That is an intimidating living room. The intellectual density in that air must have been, suffocating in the best possible way.
It's the entire intellectual architecture of the burgeoning Black Power movement, all in one zip code. And here's the really strange thing. Even though Nina writes in her autobiography that she never formally met Malcolm face-to-face before he died.
Which seems almost impossible given their proximity.
It really does.
Yeah.
But his presence, his ideas, they were a constant in her life. She was breathing the same air. She was hearing his message from the people in her own home. His orbit was her orbit.
And then his death. That seems to be the moment the switches flipped for her.
It was the catalyst. It absolutely devastated her. The news broke while she was literally getting ready for her birthday party.
Oh, that's just brutal.
And in her memoir, she describes that moment. She says it pushed her thoughts faster down the track they were already on.
The track they were already on? That phrase is so telling. It implies she was already moving away from the mainstream narrative, from the nonviolent consensus.
Precisely. The train was already moving. This just threw a ton of coal in the engine. Remember, she had already written Mississippi Goddamn by this point, which we'll deconstruct later in a lot more detail.
Right.
But Malcolm's death confirmed her darkest suspicion. It was proof. The proof that they would, and this is her quote, die like flies if they didn't fight back. She saw the nonviolent approach not as a moral high ground anymore, but as a potential death sentence.
And there's a really heartbreaking detail in the notes about what happened in the aftermath of the assassination. Nina didn't just, mourn from a distance. She stepped in.
She did. She became very, very close with Betty Shabazz, Malcolm's widow.
They became neighbors again.
Yes. And just think about that dynamic for a second. You have Nina, who is rapidly becoming the sonic embodiment of the movement's rage, living next door to the woman who is now raising the children of its greatest martyr.
The weight of that, the shared grief.
They bonded over the very specific, very heavy burden of being these monumental black women caught right in the crosshairs of American history. One is the sonic guardian, the other is the survivor of a prophet.
It really feels like Nina found her ideological home with Malcolm, much more so than with Dr. King, which might surprise some people.
The sources are crystal clear on that. She had immense respect for Dr. King, let's be clear. She performed at the Selma to Montgomery marches. She was there.
She supported the cause.
Absolutely. But her soul, her gut, was with the radical wing. She aligned herself with SNCC, with Stokely Carmichael, and especially with the Nation of Islam's blistering critique of white America. She didn't want to integrate into a burning house. She wanted to build a new one.
Which brings us to the blueprint for that new house. Or maybe the weapon to defend it. We have to talk about the ballot or the bullet.
Malcolm's masterpiece, his political thesis.
I read the transcript you sent over, and it is just striking how modern it sounds. This was delivered on April 3rd, 1964, in Cleveland, Ohio. Can you set the stage for us? Why was this particular speech so pivotal?
Context is absolutely everything here. First off, it's a presidential election year. You've got Lyndon B. Johnson versus Barry Goldwater, a huge political moment.
Right.
But more importantly, you have to understand where Malcolm is personally and politically. He has just made this incredibly risky, incredibly public break from the Nation of Islam. He's no longer under the thumb of Elijah Muhammad. He's independent.
So the gloves are off?
The gloves are completely off. He's no longer just a religious figurehead. He's moving from religious theology to direct, unfiltered political action. And in this speech, he issues this stark ultimatum to America. It is, as the title says, either the ballot or the bullet.
Yeah, that soundbite gets thrown around all the time. But I feel like most people miss the nuance. He wasn't just standing up there threatening violence, was he?
No, and that's the most common misconception. It wasn't a threat. It was a diagnosis. He was looking at the political condition of Black America, and he was giving a prognosis. He was saying, look, either the government lets us participate fully in the democratic process, gives us the ballot, respects our vote, protects our rights, or by its own inaction, it leaves us no other choice but the bullet.
It was an if-then statement, a logical conclusion, not a wish.
Exactly. It was a political analysis. And a huge part of that analysis is this section where he just completely dismantles the idea of the American dream.
The line that stood out to me was, I don't see any American dream. I see an American nightmare.
That line cuts right to the bone. And his argument is just cold, hard logic. He points out the fundamental hypocrisy of the term American itself. He says, look, if being born here actually made you an American, you wouldn't need the Civil Rights Act.
You wouldn't need amendments to the Constitution to grant you rights that should be inherent.
Precisely. Mm-hmm. He compares the situation of Black Americans to that of, say, Polish or Italian immigrants who came here.
Right. He says they don't need any special civil rights legislation to be treated like citizens. They just are. Their whiteness grants them that automatically.
That's it. He calls it what it is, disguised hypocrisy. But the real strategic genius of the speech, the part that often gets lost in all the talk about the bullet, is his pivot from the language of civil rights to the language of human rights.
Okay, explain the difference there, because to the average person, those terms sound almost synonymous.
They sound similar, but in a legal and strategic sense, they are worlds apart. Malcolm argued that civil rights is, by definition, a domestic issue. It's a family argument happening inside the House of the United States, which means it falls under the jurisdiction of Uncle Sam. And if you go to court for your civil rights, you're in Uncle Sam's court. He said it's like asking the criminal to be the judge.
That is an incredibly powerful and damning analogy.
But human rights, That's different. That is an international concept. It falls into the Charter of the United Nations. Malcolm's strategy was to bypass the U.S. government entirely.
To go over their heads?
Completely. He wanted to take the case of Black America to the World Court in The Hague. He wanted to bring in the newly independent African and Asian nations as allies to put international pressure on the United States to sanction them for their human rights abuses. He wanted to put America on trial before the entire world.
He had a line, Uncle Sam's hands are dripping with blood, and he wanted the global community to see it. That's not just a protest strategy, that is a massive geopolitical pivot. It changes the scale of the fight from a local march to a global indictment.
And it terrified the establishment. It was one thing to have protesters in Alabama. It was another thing entirely to be condemned on the world stage by a coalition of nations.
Okay, but we do have to address the bullet part of the speech head on, because that's what made him the angry black man. That's what scared white America to its core.
We do. And this connects right back to our central thesis of Reframing Rage. Malcolm was not calling for wanton aggression. He was calling for reciprocity.
Reciprocity is the key word there.
It is. He says it plainly. I'm nonviolent with those who are nonviolent with me.
Yeah.
But then he lays out the other side of that equation. He says, if someone sets a police dog on you,
Kill that dog.
kill that dog. It is a fundamental refusal to be a passive victim. It is the demand for dignity through self-defense. And this is the part that gets conveniently forgotten. He grounds this entire argument in the U.S. Constitution.
He brings up the Second Amendment.
He explicitly references Article 2. His argument was simple. If the government is either unwilling or unable to protect black lives and black property, then black people have the same legal constitutional right to own a rifle or a shotgun and protect themselves as any other citizen.
It's a self-defense argument. It's literally the same argument people use today to justify gun ownership, but when he said it, it was treated as a call for insurrection.
Because it challenged the state's monopoly on violence. It was about claiming the full rights of citizenship, including the right not to be brutalized without consequence. It was the refusal to suffer quietly. And that exact same desire for reciprocity, that need to send the pain back to its source, is exactly what was bubbling up inside Nina Simone at the very same time.
Which leads us directly to 1963. The sources all point to this as the catalyst year for Nina, the year everything changed.
If 1964 was the year of Malcolm's speech, 1963 was the year of the blood. It was relentless. In June, you have the assassination of Medgar Evers in Mississippi, shot in his own driveway in front of his children.
Nina said that was the match.
That lit the fuse.
Yeah.
But the explosion, the thing that broke her, was September?
The 16th Street Baptist Church bombing in Birmingham.
Birmingham, Alabama.
Yeah.
September 15th. A bomb planted by the KKK goes off during Sunday school. And it kills 4 little girls. Addie Mae Collins, Cynthia Wesley, Carol Robertson, and Carol Denise McNair.
The story of Nina's reaction to this news is, it's frankly shocking if all you know of her is the singer of My Baby Just Cares for Me. She didn't go to the piano, she went to the garage.
She did. She walked out into her garage and just started gathering scraps, tools, metal pipes, wires, anything she could find. She was trying to build a homemade gun, a zip gun.
She wanted to kill someone.
She said it explicitly in her autobiography. I had it in my mind to go out and kill someone, I didn't care who. She wanted to take one of them out. She wanted that reciprocity that Malcolm was talking about. She wanted to balance the scales of violence with her own hands.
It's such a raw, primal response.
It's the response of a person pushed beyond the limits of grief and into pure fury.
And it was her husband who stopped her.
Her husband and manager at the time, Andy Stroud, he found her in the garage just manic with this rage, trying to assemble this crude weapon. And he looked at her and said, Nina, you can't kill anyone. You are a musician. Do what you do.
Do what you do. That sounds like such a simple instruction, but in that moment, it was a profound intervention.
It was a redirection of energy. He didn't tell her not to be angry. He didn't tell her to calm down. He told her to use her anger, but to use her own weapons.
And that intervention changed the course of music history. She left the garage, she went back inside, sat at the piano.
And in less than an hour, she wrote, Mississippi Goddamn.
An hour?
The whole thing just erupted out of her. She described it as a rush of fury, hatred, and determination. She later said that the song itself was like throwing 10 bullets back at them. So in a very real way, she didn't abandon the bullet. She just changed the delivery mechanism.
She turned the piano into a piece of artillery.
That's exactly what she did.
Okay, let's get into the song itself. Because if you just listen to the melody of Mississippi Goddamn without understanding the English language, you would have no idea what it's about. You might think it's a happy song.
That is the Trojan horse effect. It's a masterclass in musical and lyrical subversion. Musically, it is structured as a show tune. It's got this fast, almost jaunty 24 piano vamp. It sounds like something you'd hear in a Broadway cabaret or a musical comedy.
She even introduces it that way on the live recording from Carnegie Hall. She says, with this little bit of sass in her voice, "This is a show tune, but the show hasn't been written for it yet."
Then the audience laughs. You can hear it clearly on the recording. They think she's being witty and charming. They're tapping their feet. They're smiling. She completely disarms them. And then once their guard is down, she detonates the lyrics.
Alabama's got me so upset.
Tennessee made me lose my rest.
Everybody knows about Mississippi, goddamn.
She is literally mapping the geography of American racial terror over this upbeat, danceable piano beat. It creates this profound cognitive dissonance in the listener. Your body wants to move, but the words are just screaming at you about murder and injustice.
And there's a very specific lyric that functions as a direct attack on the political strategy of the time, the idea of going slow.
Yes. This was the mantra of the moderate liberals and even the mainstream civil rights movement to a certain extent. Gradualism. Take it easy. Change takes time. Don't push too hard.
And Nina just shreds that idea.
She sings, "You keep on saying go slow." But that's just the trouble. Desegregation too slow, mass participation too slow. She is aligning herself 100% with Malcolm's Ballad or the Bullet urgency here. She is screaming from the piano that gradualism is just a slower way of killing us.
And then she hits them with the line that I think is the most radical in the whole song. "You don't have to live next to me, just give me my equality."
That is the dagger. It's so powerful. She is rejecting the entire sentimental kumbaya, let's all be friends version of integration.
She's saying this isn't about social niceties.
Exactly. She's saying, I don't need your friendship. I don't need to be invited to your dinner party. This isn't about liking me. This is about structural power. I need my rights. I need my vote to count. I need the police to not kill me. It's a very separatist, very black power sentiment wrapped up in a charming little show tune.
And you can hear the audience's reaction shift on that recording, can't you?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. The vibe in the room completely changes. In that live version from Carnegie Hall, there's a moment where she stops the piano vamp cold, and she asks the audience, almost taunting them, "Bet you thought I was kidding, didn't you?"
And the nervous laughter just dies. It's gone.
Dead silence. Suddenly, all the air is sucked out of the room. She trapped them. She used their own cultural forms against them and forced a wealthy, predominantly white audience at Carnegie Hall to sit in the fire of her rage.
It must have had real, tangible consequences for her career, though. You can't do that and expect to stay a pop star.
The consequences were huge and immediate. Radio stations across the country, especially in the South, banned it. Ostensibly because of the word goddamn in the title.
But we all know what the real reason was.
Of course. Boxes of the promotional singles were returned to her record label, cracked in half. DJs literally broke the records and mailed the pieces back. It was a declaration of war. And it marked her permanent transition from popular jazz singer to political radical. She was no longer safe for mainstream consumption.
That radicalization wasn't just coming from Malcolm's ideas or her own fury, though. There was another crucial figure. We have to talk about her teacher, Lorraine Hansberry.
The author of A Raisin in the Sun.
Yeah.
She was Nina's neighbor in Croton-on-Hudson, and she became her political and intellectual mentor. And this relationship is so important because it grounds Nina's rage in deep intellect. It wasn't just emotion, it was theory.
The notes mention they used to have girls talk, but it wasn't what you might typically imagine.
No, Nina said, and this is a direct quote, "We never talked about men or clothes. It was always Marx, Lenin, and revolution. Real girls talk." Hansberry was the one who gave her the global perspective, right? She connected the dots for Nina. That's exactly right. Hansberry was an intellectual heavyweight. She was a communist. She taught Nina that the struggle happening in Mississippi wasn't an isolated American problem. It was connected to colonialism in Africa, to class struggle in Europe, to the anti-war movement. She gave Nina the Marxist framework to understand her own oppression. She internationalized Nina's mind, just like Malcolm was trying to do with his speeches at the UN.
And as the 60s dragged on and the assassinations and the violence just kept piling up, Nina just moved further and further left. The definitive turning point seems to be 1968.
The assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
The man of peace. The one person who was supposedly untouchable because he advocated for nonviolence.
And when they killed him, when they killed the King of Love, something in Nina seemed to snap permanently. It was the final straw. The idea of nonviolence as a viable strategy died with him in her mind.
And she made that public.
Oh, yes. 3 days after he was killed, she was scheduled to perform at the Westbury Music Fair. Her bass player wrote a song in the hours after the assassination called Why? The King of Love is Dead.
And she performed it. She said the quiet part out loud, in front of everybody.
Left.
Yeah. This brings us to the part of the story that is, it's often mishandled or just ignored because it's so uncomfortable. And that's the human cost, the mental toll. Because you cannot live at this level of intensity. You can't be a lightning rod for the racial trauma of an entire nation without getting burned. And back then, in the 60s and 70s, the press didn't have that language. They just called her crazy. A character issue. Let's list that trauma, because it is relentless, and it didn't start with the church bombing in 1963. And she was rejected. And then there was her marriage. And on top of all that, there's the grief. I mean, her address book was basically a list of martyrs by the end of the 1960s. Can't process that much loss. That's where the Rage is Love thesis really solidifies for me. The attempt to build a gun, the protest songs, the shouting matches from the stage. It was all a desperate, flawed, but powerful attempt to protect people. She went into exile. But before she left, before the exile, she gave us the other side of the coin. It wasn't all rage and fury. She also wrote the anthem, written in memory of her mentor, Lorraine Hansberry. It's such a beautiful, hopeful song. To be young, gifted, and black, oh, what a lovely, precious. Nina died in 2003 in France, and from all accounts, she stayed radical, she stayed uncompromising right to the very end. So here we are, Saturday, February 24, 2026. 61 years after Malcolm X was killed on this day. 93 years after Nina Simone was born on this day. What do we do with this legacy? What does it mean for us right now? And when you listen to a song like Mississippi Goddamn Today, painfully relevant. That is something to sit with. Nina Simone and Malcolm X. Two souls who met at the intersection of fury and love and left a map for the rest of us. Thank you for taking this incredibly deep dive with us today. The J Spot is a J. Breyer Allen production, edited by Jay Rivera, Danielle Reyes, and Josette Garcia.